Ready, Dave? Okay.
Just try not to screw it up, but
Welcome to the Fargo Parking Commission. Thanks for joining us, and we'll start with introductions. Commissioner Pepcorn, you want to start?
Dave Pepcorn, Fargo City Commission. I'm the liaison commissioner with the Parking Commission.
Jake Krabanoff, Gate City Bank.
Randy Thorson, downtown business owner.
Mike Williams, Risk Manager.
Brian Hayer, Bell Insurance.
Austin Morris, Enclave Development.
Thanks, everyone. First item on the agenda is Happy New Year, and approve the order of agenda. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next item is to approve the minutes from November 21st. Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And we'll hear from Interstate Parking. Vanessa, have you got some reports for us?
Good morning. So for November and December, we really didn't see much change. Revenue, monthly revenue held steady. Transient revenue at the Civic NNP, we did see an increase there. At ROCO, we saw a little bit of a dip in November, but an increase in December. There wasn't any major expenses in those months, but I did want to go over some year-end numbers for you. So in 2019, the monthly revenue, we did see a 5% decrease in revenue, and that was mostly because of the 152 parkers that we lost at Island Park Ramp. Validation parking over at Civic and NP, we did see an increase of 26%. At ROCO, we did see a decrease in validation revenue. And that was due to, well, I went back to 2018 to see why that decrease. And we did lose, Intelligent Insights moved out of downtown, and they were a big user of the validation program. So there was a decrease there. But transient revenue, at the Civic and NP, we did see an increase of 59%. And ROCO, we saw an increase of 80% in transient revenue for 2019. So overall, it was a good year.
So in ROCO, you'd mentioned before that there were a lot of contractors at one time that were parking there, and those folks, are they still using it or not so much?
Not so much. They're mainly over at Block 9. Mm-hmm. So we did see a little bit of a dip there with them not parking at ROCO on a daily basis.
Right, and then so the transient traffic, and did we see what's happening at Island Park? Is it much movement there?
Not much.
Yeah. So that's part of what we're gonna be talking about today, is how we
Right.
can get more use out of Island Park, and I think they have some good ideas that we'll be hearing, and we welcome yours too. Okay, go ahead, sorry, Vanessa.
Oh, and that's really all I have for you, unless there's any questions for me.
Sure, does anybody have any questions for Vanessa? So do you project what you think's gonna happen for next year, and you think it's gonna, overall it was 5 down?
I think we will actually see an increase next year once Block 9 goes to, their users, the RDO users. The temporary users that are in there now will eventually need parking. So I think we'll see those numbers increase.
Good. And how's the overnight enforcement going with this
Overnight-
winter? It's been a tough
Overnight
deal.
enforcement. So for November, we wrote out a total of 1,753 tickets. December.
How many?
Excuse me?
How many?
1,753.
Thanks.
In December, we did see a drop of, we wrote 1,205. And that was every day of the month except for 3.5 shifts. And that was due
Right.
to the weather,
Right.
the holiday.
Right.
Right now, for January, as of Tuesday, we've written 1,169 tickets. So maybe people are finally
That's our-
learning,
Right,
or
that's our
parking-
goal, is to write
or
fewer
parking,
tickets, that's right.
right, or parking in the ramps.
Good deal. So, and has it been tough? I mean, we've tried to get the word out, and the enforcement, or the law's always been there, but the enforcement hasn't.
I think it's gotten a little better. People still don't seem to understand you know, and there's a few that'll call in and, you know, they're thinking that when you say Wednesday, you're thinking Wednesday night instead of, you know, 2 a.m. to that 7 a.m.
Yep.
So,
That's been a long bone, you know, it's hard for some folks to understand it, you know, midnight on Monday
Right.
night starts Tuesday.
right, but it's obviously getting better.
Right. So if we can figure out some smart, fun way to figure, you know, help share that in our communications, I think that'd be good. But anyway, yeah, thanks. Anybody have anything else? All right, so the next item is the request for temporary use of the parking lot on Main Avenue. It's Nicole?
Excuse me. I was going to ask Maggie to take this item, if you'd like. Yeah.
Okay, so we did get a request from DCP to use the Main Avenue lot during street fair. They're gonna use it for their street, or their concert stage. Currently, we have, oh, where are my numbers? Currently, we have 67 parkers in there. So that should be, you know, we should be able to relocate them to either the 4th Street lot or the Island Park ramp. I don't see it as an issue. So we would recommend to go ahead and partner with the DCP and allow them the use of the lot for July 18th and 19th.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. We used it for a skating rink and it worked well. Randy?
Do we have a representative from the DCP today? Could I talk with you just a little bit? A couple of questions? Thanks.
Can you? Thanks. Go ahead.
So on this particular lot, then you'll be serving alcohol, is that correct?
Correct. We'll
Okay.
be using our DCPE permit for the entire street fair route as well as this lot.
Okay, so will this event then last more than just what you're utilizing it for the stage and because it's important for parking in the downtown during the event, and so I know we're taking you know, the NP Avenue lot, and a lot of those lots are full in the first place. So when we take that out, I was just curious. I'm not asking us not to do this. I'm just saying, you know, it was an important lot in the past. And I know that you're coming down Broadway now all the way with your vendors, correct?
Yeah, so we're planning on going all the way to Broadway and Main Avenue. So our idea is to encourage people to park in Island Park and really utilize that lot because they'll just have to walk right across the street to get to the beginning of the street fair as well as the stage. And the stage will be utilized during the same time that street fair is utilized. So for safety reasons, it also would be nice to be able to have that lot so that we can close the road right at Main Avenue.
Okay, and so along with the serving of alcohol, I would imagine that's maybe in the back or in the middle of the, does the DCP, do they carry general liability, liquor liability?
Yes, we do.
And then do they name the city as an additional insured in that as well?
Yes, we do because with street fair, all the alcohol is served on public streets. So our liquor policy does list the city of Fargo as additionally insured
Okay,
for the entire event. So the stage will be in conjunction with street fair. It won't be separate.
okay. That's all I have.
And then do you have the layout for the stage? Are you gonna put it on the west and the northwest or are you gonna?
Yes, I think we'll put it on the east side, like as far back as we can so that we have space for everyone to be able to stand and.
And you're just gonna block it off so nobody's trying to drive in and out of it?
Right, so we'll block, there's an entrance on Main Avenue that we'll put blockades in front of so nobody can pull into the lot.
Great. All right, and the FM link, we're gonna be using that for special events. They'll basically be running some routes, because I know we use, I think we all, a couple thousand people on that for those days, so you're
Yeah.
working with
We
transit
definitely
on
want to
that.
work with them moving forward, especially for street fair. I think we get a lot of use out of it, picking people up from the Moorhead Center Mall and bringing them downtown. So that's another way to have a large parking lot that we can put a lot of cars in with us taking another lot.
Right, thanks a lot. Any
thank
other
you.
questions? Dave?
I think it's great. I'm a little concerned because obviously the parking is at a premium when all those people go downtown, but the opportunity is to hopefully have people use the Island Park lot and figure out how to use it. And I know we're gonna talk about this later, but your state of downtown parking, this thing, that is a great idea. I don't know who came up with that, but there's a lot of people that just, we're changing our culture. Parking in parking ramps in Fargo has not been the norm, and so I think it's good just to get people used to even using the ramp and which exit to use to go to different places. I think it's great, so thank you for doing that.
Well, right, and so, thanks staff, Nicole and Maggie and DCP. Joe Nig and Andy and others, we'd have open houses for this periodically, but it's been quite a while since we've done one, and it changes a lot. Commissioner Thorson?
Yeah, the other thing that, I didn't think about it till just now, but CI Apparel, actually one of my companies, we're moved out of there, so we'll actually have another 75, 80 parking spots open for that particular event as well.
So it might not be a bad idea before the street fair to just talk, maybe have a short article, maybe the city can do something about, here's the lots that are available and the number of spaces, because sometimes that's just, people don't know where to go and helping a little bit. And also the shuttle, that's a good thing, so, thank you.
Bet. Do we want to make a motion?
Sure, I'd make a motion to approve the request for temporary use of the parking lot for street fair
Do we have a
in
second?
2020.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks a lot. And then update on mercantile parking. I see they're putting down the the helical piles, right?
What I wanted to do today is just kind of give you a report on the actions that the city commission have taken relative to getting the mercantile parking garage underway, and just what the final terms of those agreements were. I've included in your packet is a description that was attached to the city commission action that they took in October, and so I just wanted to go over the the relevant parts of that agreement, so you're familiar with what the plan is and what was actually approved. The first talked about the project description. These are the terms of the agreement. There's a minimum of 360 parking spots. Right now it's right at around 369. Kilbourne had guaranteed us a maximum project cost of $12.2 million for the construction of the parking garage. In addition to that, there's a city contingency that we're involved with making decisions on of $235,000 just for additional costs with the weather, and we're probably into that some with the little later than expected start, but it'll depend on how the weather goes from here for the rest of the winter. The city is also going to be responsible for reconstruction of the west side of 5th Street from 4th Avenue North to the up to the bike shop. We just didn't have a cost and a firm design on that, and so that's a number that's kind of floating, but it's estimated at up to about $115,000. The city will have a cost related to our contract with Walker Consulting. They'll be monitoring this project for us, like Block 9. We know we'll have some information services costs, some things that weren't in the bid, and then there'll be some costs for taxes and special assessments during construction. So the estimate was a little over 12.7 million. We have 13 million available, and so we do have a little bit left for contingencies. Some other conditions are that the city will have the ability to lease space for a police station and a parking office along the 4th Avenue side of the building. The developer is also, required to provide about, the building will have about 95,000 square feet of residential space and 15,000 square feet of commercial space. Some of the sub-agreements that we have is we are guaranteeing parking for the Bison Apartments. They'll be able to rent parking and have priority for that, as well as the 100 spaces for the mercantile tenants. The black building will have priority, meaning they'll have be first on the waiting list for the black building for up to 75 spaces. And then we also have an agreement with Tom Smith with Great Northern Cycles for access and use of the parking facility with some permanent garages that he'll be putting into that. So just kind of wanted to go over those terms with you. Next several pages have to do with just some of the parking projections that we had. I won't cover that. But as far as the financing plan and making bond payments, you know, the plan is to use a little over $300,000 of annual revenue from the mercantile garage, you know, $240,000 a year from fee increases from other parking facilities. We're planning to sell that parking lot on Main Avenue and Broadway. I really don't know what the proceeds we'll get from that, but we need that to make our debt payments towards the end of this year. We borrowed some money for capitalized interest, and then there'll be TIF revenue from the various TIF districts. So I just wanted to kind of go over that, and then also we did complete the bond sale. I think we get the proceeds either today or tomorrow for the $11 million that we borrowed. And so I put together this kind of spreadsheet to show you what the you know, net income projected over the next 25 years. And so you can kind of see as we start out what we have net operating income. That's the income less expenses we paid in interstate parking or other city costs. The pre-2015 refers to our facilities that we had prior to Roberts and Mercantile. The Roberts and Mercantile are listed there, and so about 1.5 million in projected net operating income. You know, this may go up a little bit depending on occupancy, things like that, on park ramp, and so I think these are, you know, fairly reasonable numbers to use as estimates. They're not super high or super low. The TIF income, we have two TIF districts, one for the Roberts Garage, the other for Mercantile. As those buildings, as Renaissance Zone incentives expire, those buildings will start to pay property taxes, and those property taxes will go into the parking TIF fund and be available for the debt. Our long-term debt includes some lots that we bought from the railroad years ago. There's one more year of payment in 2021 as well as this year. The Roberts, we're 5 years into that debt, and so we've got 15 years left on that. That was a 20-year term. And then the RPV stands for Research Park Ventures. We borrowed $2 million from them. There's a balloon payment due in 10 years. What our finance people would like is to kind of set up a reserve fund so we have that money kind of available in a separate account, so we remember that we owe that money and don't go spend it on something else. And then the Mercantile, you can see the bond payments there. They start out a little bit lower. Our Baker Tilly, our financial advisors, kind of lined up the bond payments with what money we would have available, trying to keep our coverage ratio at about 1.2. So you see that over the next 10 years, the net income will not be real substantial. You know, and once we get about 10 years out, the TIF revenue comes in pretty strong. That Research Park Ventures loan would be paid off, and then we're in the $700,000 a year range. And when ROCO is paid for, it gets into the about 900, close to $1 million a year net income is. And then when it's when Mercantile is paid for, we anticipate it'd be about 1.5 million a year in net income from the parking fund. So just wanted to give you kind of a view of how this is going to kind of play out over the next few years. It's going to be, you know, kind of tight budgets for, you know, next period of time, and then next 10 years, and after that the funds will be quite healthy. So, any questions or?
Sure. So what's the status of the land under Island Park Ramp?
We've agreed on a price. We're trying to get the surveys done and get that purchased probably in the next 60 days.
And then, you know, I think it just shows how important it is to maximize that Island Park ramp because, you know, we're just looking at the, you know, debt and income on these two ramps, but that one's paid for, so is the Civic. So it's just critical to maximize those because, you know, these aren't dedicated funds just to those projects. You know, he's just working out the financials, but say that we max out Island Park ramp, a lot of this debt goes down faster, so.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you can get, you know, there's certainly room for another 200 cars in the Island Park ramp. You know, that could boost your annual income $150,000, $200,000 a year.
Right, so I think that just shows that we gotta maximize. Randy?
Mr. Chairman, Jim, so just so I understand this, so last year's revenue was 840,000. Are you saying that the expected revenue in the future with these changes is 1.5 million? Is it going to change the revenue, you know, that we're currently making, you know, by doing this? Are we lowering that revenue for the first 5 years, 10 years? You know, can you explain that to me just so I understand?
The net revenue that you see in the interstate parking report does not include city costs such as utilities, staff, security. Probably the end of January and February, we'll have a better idea what were the overall costs. So part of our major cost is with interstate parking. But so, yeah, their net revenue showed higher than I have here, but there are other utility costs, condominium costs that they do not pay that come out of the city parking budget.
Mm-hmm. But are you saying then that revenue, that 1.5, that will be the revenue? I mean, even if this 840,000 is something less than, you know, what interstate parking is showing, I'm just trying to understand, are you saying that then our net should grow on the revenue side, even as we show it on the interstate parking report?
Yeah, our net revenue will grow first of all, Mercantile, of course, isn't there yet, but the City Commission, on your recommendation, approved some fairly large rate increases to be implemented in 2021.
Correct.
Those are included in here. So yeah, if you look at this year's revenue, it's less, but it doesn't include the Mercantile revenue, it doesn't include the fee increases, and it, on the other side of the ledger, it doesn't include some of the costs that we have.
But your plan is to increase these revenues over this period of time.
So yeah, the plan is to increase it substantially in 2021 when Mercantile opens.
Okay, all right. And then just the other thing, every time we do, you know, another facility, do we have a net gain at this point yet, or do we really need to be working on you know, filling the garages and the surface lots that we already have?
I think the greatest potential to increase existing facilities is at Island Park ramp. The others are operating, you know, pretty close to capacity. I know interstate parking watches the occupancy, and so, you know, if we can get another 5% out of, you know, occupancy, we'll certainly, you know, do that. But, you know, most of these
Jim, with, you know, all these times, I think one of the last reports, you know, we had a net gain of 12 parking spots or something, I'm just guessing. You know, with these two facilities, and I know there's commitments because there's development all around it, I just need to know for when we make decisions about what we want to do, how we want to fill a ramp, what we want to charge, you know, and in a parking garage, do we have a net gain as we've increased and added these two facilities?
You know, the Mercantile, or excuse me, Roberts was a relatively small net gain because we sold the Block 9 lot and we were using 100 spots in the Civic lot that were no longer available, plus, you know, private lots, and I think that's where you had that net gain of about 15, you know, spots. You know, there was a lot of the net gain was because they had been all underutilized, now they're probably overutilized. So Mercantile, you know, there's 369 spots, that's a net gain for the city. There were about 70 surface spots there before, and so that particular site is about a net gain of 300. I think once, you know, Mercantile is open and operating and the wrap is done, you know, then we're gonna get a better picture for what parking demand is gonna be, because, you know, businesses come and go into downtown, and, you know, 18 months from now, we might find out, yeah, you know, if 18 months from now, are we gonna have 200 people on the waiting list or 2? I mean, I think that's the
And I guess, Jim, part of my questioning is that, you know, if we have that kind of net gain, you know, how is it that we're going to fill Island Park? And I certainly understand why we would sell then the Main Avenue lot, and we can move some of those over. So it's just for me to understand, as we have our discussions here, how important that's going to be, and is it going to be more difficult than we think? And, you know, do we need to sell Main Avenue more quickly if that's what we're going to do?
Yeah, I think one of the things we've talked to people about is a shuttle from the Island Park ramp, you know, to the core of the downtown. Would people ride that or would they not? And I hear from some businesses say, I think a few of our employees would, and others say, they're not gonna do that at all. So, you know, there's, I don't know if
That's
we wanna
what they
try-
said about bike share too, you know. Dave.
I do think that, so after Block 9 opens and after Mercantile is done, then we have to reevaluate, you know, and see how things are, because I think we've done a lot of changes, and there's lots of changes coming outside of our control, and so, but I think then you have to reevaluate and say, how is everything, what are capacities, and what should we be looking at next? But I think not until after those are open and operating, you know what I mean? That's.
Yeah.
Well, it makes it difficult, you know, for us to move forward on any of these other decisions until we know for certain what was the effect of everything, you know. That's where I was going with
I
it.
think one of the things that we can do to help ourselves is a lot of projects in the Renaissance Zone have, even when they're retrofit, put some parking underneath their own buildings. And to me, when we're, you know, selling lots and things, there's some ways that we can add into those RFPs or RFQs, whatever, to take care of some of their own parking and not always depend on the public to pay for all of their parking needs. So it doesn't have to be all of their parking needs, but some. And I think that you know, that we make sure that we're all looking to make it the most efficient it can be and looking for all the ways we want to be able to move around. You think about Main Avenue, those businesses and mixed use, a lot of people aren't gonna have to be driving as much. I mean, that's the whole idea about mixed use. You live closer to where you live, work, and play. So we're seeing some of those benefits, but I think if we keep that dimension in as we're asking for proposals, we'll get the value that we want. I mean, those public lots are valuable. Jay?
Mr. Chairman, Jim, you have some projections though on how this is all going to maybe fall out when the new ramp is done, don't you? And that
Yeah,
can help
I'm-
make decisions
My
now.
projections are that in 18 months, they're all gonna be full, you know, probably, and we're gonna have a waiting list, so then we're gonna have to deal with that. But I think until that happens, and, you know, one of the factors downtown is there's a fair amount of vacant office space, and so as that starts to lease up, you know, there's gonna be some office space in Block 9 that will initially may or may not be occupied. There's some vacant space in the Black Building and other buildings. You know, one of the people we had penciled in for 40 parking spots in Mercantile now says we'll take 70 when it opens, and so, you know, we're gonna you know, see some increasing demand. But I think, you know, what we've learned from Roberts is, you know, some people drop off, some people come in, but I think we were pretty accurate on that one.
I think, Vanessa, what's the transient revenue at ROCO? You know, it was up 80%, but what is it?
We ended with, and I'm sorry, we ended with $153,332.
Right, so, you know, when we think about Island Park and how important it is to get that hourly and get people to use it, I mean, it's like at the airport where you pay $8 a day. Well, if you're paying $3 an hour, you're making more money. So it's, even though you know, people just need to get used to the ramps, and I think that we're gonna find if we open that up and market it, we're gonna get full use out of that thing. And that still doesn't mean, there are empty offices, especially in some of those buildings right there. As they fill up, that doesn't hinder, because we're not contracting with the transient parkers. We can still go ahead and rent those spots that we need to, and really, it's the overnight parking that's, you know, at some point, overnight parking won't be free. But for now it is, and I think it's a good thing to be that way.
I think interstate parking, it was speculating some of the transient revenue at Roberts was people weren't able to get a monthly spot, so then they just still parked there and paid every day. And that worked out to $160 a month. And so as monthly spots opened up in Block 9, they moved over there.
Right, but I think that that's just sort of, shows the point that it kind of is it's a good thing for us when they don't always have a spot rented, and that we do get more than 100% occupancy because of the transient traffic. So I think Interstate's parking strategy that way, I mean, to get to higher than 100% in transient parking, feels 150,000, it's a lot more than we expected, I know.
Yeah.
Great.
I think, there's certainly potential for these numbers to be a little higher. We didn't want to push them too high and not be able to cover the bonds.
Right, well, the 2 hours free and free after 5, that's something that we'll talk about here again as we're marketing our parking facilities. So what's the rate that we locked in at for the bond on Mercantile?
The bonds are, like your 1-year bonds and your 2-year bonds have a lower interest rate than your 20-year bonds and your 17-year bonds. They're all different interest rates. The projected, I think going into this, even kind of prior to our bond rating changing, was that the average would be about 3.66%. And actually, we ended up selling the bonds at 3.54 is the average interest rate.
And do you remember what we did with our GO bonds for Roberts?
I don't recall
I think
that
it was
one.
lower than that, which, but anyway, 3.6 or 3.5 is what you said?
3.54.
Okay.
I don't know if the Roberts might have been even a little higher. Interest rates have been dropping. Because we actually looked at whether or not we should try to refinance Roberts if interest rates had dropped enough, but it wasn't.
Okay. Yeah, what do they figure? If it drops a half a point, then it's worth maybe
It gets into, bonds on different years can be called. For instance, these ones on Mercantile, I think they can't really be refinanced for another, 9 or 10 years. Then you can look at refinancing them.
Okay. Good. Well, thanks. Anybody have any more questions? Austin?
Yeah, just when you look at parking demand, is the goal there to lease spaces on a monthly basis, or is that just estimated parking demand based on conversations with those folks?
Most of the use of our facilities is monthly, parking probably, 80-90% of it. We try to have about 50 spots available in ROCO, and then we rent out, over a little over 400 to monthly parkers. Actually, we rent out, I think, 425 to monthly parkers, but then there's usually about 50 available because not everyone's there at once. So.
Yep. And is that usually 8 till 5, or is there a duration?
Yeah, the facilities are free after, except during 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. There just hasn't been that much parking demand in the evening or on weekends where we felt really going to get much revenue by charging. Plus, it helps out with sales tax revenue, encourages people to come downtown in the evening.
Yeah.
I've been downtown in the evening and surprised sometimes how high up I'll have to drive in Roberts on a Saturday to get a parking spot.
Yep. Yeah. And those leases, are they like 1-year leases or?
They're month to month.
Month to month. Okay, so you have flexibility to adjust as time goes on. I think that's it for me.
And, Austin, I think, had a good point at one of the recent meetings that trying to adjust these prices based on demand. So, if you have a lot of people on the waiting list, you might want to increase that cost a little bit more. In Island Park, if it's quite low, then maybe we need to lower that one a little bit. So it's important to take a look at how they're operating each year.
Anything else for Jim? Thanks for the report, and we'll keep moving on. We'll go to the staff report, the interstate parking contract amendment, Nicole. Morning.
Good morning. And so I'll be here to help talk through each of the staff report items. And starting out with the interstate parking, we are close to final coordination with the contract with Interstate. In December, at the last day of the year, our contract with Interstate went to month. And we had been working on coordinating updates to the parking agreement and have solidified a few details. We did go to the bring that to the Finance Committee earlier this week, and we predict being ready to bring a contract forward to City Commission in the next couple weeks. And basically, not much has changed. We would like to recommend going forward with another 3-year contract with Interstate. At the end of the next 3 years, we'll have completed our current contracts with ROCO and our current contracts with Mercantile. And so at that point in time, we see possibly going out for a full RFP on getting all of our system into kind of one contract. And so we do have a couple amendments proposed with the updated contract, and that includes some details with the former public health building and the former police building. There's a couple little lots there that can be used for renting stalls. And so we've included that and included the 7th Street lot that we own that has a few contracts on there that we plan to sell over the next year through CDBG work, community development block grant work. So we have the ability to add those or drop those, affecting with minor rate changes or minor management changes. In essence, there's no management fee increase this year. We just do the standard cost of living increase. And then the other last detail is for snow removal. The snow removal, historically, from the original, we had a capped cost of what those snow costs would be, and then annually anything above that would be taking out of Interstate's revenue. And with that, we have kind of done a lot of discussions with them, and they've never once they've never once gained money from snow removal. It's always been way over. In fact, in this last year, over $100,000 of services and snow removal. And so this year, what we proposed forward and we brought forward to Finance Committee is having a cap at $42,000, which was similar to years past. But then when anything goes over, going ahead and paying that direct cost as part of those costs. So anywhere from another $25,000, if we go by historic chart expenses, anywhere from $25,000 to $75,000 of additional cost towards snow removal. And so we just think that's fair of doing business. And so again, direct cost, no revenue gained from that. So with that, that's update on the where we're at with the interstate parking agreement. Are there any questions on that?
Yeah, so for the city's agreement with the finance department for that overage over 42,000, where's that money come from?
I'm not sure yet. So working with Kent and our accounting systems. Yeah.
Yeah, general fund, come on.
Is the snow removal vendored?
Yes.
Anything for Nicole? Okay, how about the next item?
Yeah, so we've already kind of gotten the teaser flyer here with interstate parking, or with the, in conjunction with interstate parking, the DCP and planning. We've also invited Public Works and the police department. And so we see this as a great opportunity to kind of meet and have a real informal event coming up here at the end of next week. And really a parking 101 for new residents and commercial retailers, as well as kind of a meet and greet with the staff level. We thought we would do a couple little exercises of, okay, you're coming to downtown, where do you park? Just kind of those experiential kind of little mapping exercises that would be kind of fun. And then just really being open for Q&A. This is on the heels of end of last year, early this year, the DCP did a survey with their members, and I meant to include that in your packet, so I'll send that out via separate email. And it's no surprise the number one commentary was the impact of parking. I would say the impact of construction and the impact of parking were probably the two things that flushed out the most. In general, their DCP is, through the survey, is seeing commentary on a general decrease in traffic with retailers and businesses in downtown. So we want to start to investigate those discussions. We did hear a lot of that in the downtown and focus plan, and there's a number of things economically that impact the successes of downtown retail. And so we want to take that seriously and start talking that through a little bit. But one way to start that is with this just kind of open house and make sure everybody understands how the system works. And because when the system is working, we do not believe there's kind of a shortage of parking downtown. It's just knowing where to go, really. And so helping to start marketing that message. And then continuing a partnership with the DCP in their work plan of 2020 and with our communications team and with Greg Schilberger's team, really starting to work on some marketing messaging, like with Island Park and with other ways of just kind of dismissing, trying to counter the perception of parking. And so we're really working on that as a primary goal for this next year.
So we met with you and Mark last week, and I'd mentioned that I think it's really an opportunity to bring transit and Great Rides Bike Share into it. But then also, we're going to be installing EV chargers at Roberts Ramp here coming this middle of this month. Fargo too, they've got an award for a fast charger right at City Hall here. So we're gonna be moving into the EV age. But I think to cover all the bases, it doesn't mean that we have to go into all those in great detail, but just to have the opportunity for those entities to set up a booth and to be there. And I think we could advertise a little bit for them too. And I think it just shows that we're realizing that it isn't just about finding places for cars, it's about how we move around and how we use downtown. And so I think we need to be fully dimensional in these open houses.
Sure, absolutely. And then not to steal, that's great, not to steal DCP's thunder, we been working with their staff about maybe a quarterly open house as a way to kind of, again, promote the downtown and focus plan. We're in year 2 of the plan, and as we know, it's a community plan, not just a City of Fargo plan. And so, when it comes to discussions about safety and other perceptions of downtown, we know that Do It All Downtown group was having those open houses or kind of forums last year. That's a lot of pressure to do on volunteer groups, and so we certainly encourage that discussion. But from a personal perspective, they started turning a little negative. And, staff, both the DCP and the city staff, we can take the negative, kind of, that's what we do, and filter and try to discuss and coordinate and communicate. And so we look forward to working with the DCP over the next year. So on the heels of this, just to know that there's going to be more open houses as we talk through this and brainstorm on different topics, and definitely including the innovation and kind of new things happening in downtown.
It's kind of a show and tell a little bit. It's just, it's a platform.
Absolutely.
Right. So it's not like they have to dominate, but just so they can have a place for their materials there.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
all I'm saying.
Yeah. So we hope you're able to come, or at least if you would like to stop by, we'd love to introduce you as parking commissioners, but don't feel like you have to. There's going to be several more opportunities throughout the year. So next, maybe I'll pause if there's any other comments or questions on that topic.
Mr. Chair, so real quickly, so one of the other banks, I won't say the bank, but their employees, they have branches all around town, and they don't look forward to working downtown because of the parking challenges. And so I take that's not what we want. We want the employees that work, that should be the highlight, to be able to be downtown and be able to walk to every place to eat and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's just an issue. I hope we can keep that in our mind, because that's the exact opposite of what I picture. And so I think we need to work with some of those big employers, and I know Gate City, they do a good job, and maybe copy what they do or something. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think it does. You think, but and you're right, that's part of the culture. But then the people that are, at least some, it's where you get to have these incidental meetings, when you're out in the suburbs and you're parking in the same spot in a flat lot every day and driving over 6 blocks to eat. that's a whole different environment. So it's part of education and, you know, showing the opportunities. And I think these open houses will help with that. And maybe going, you know, reaching out to those employers and, you know, working with them. You know, we need to understand their concerns, and Jay's shared a lot of his.
Nicole, I appreciate this, and this is so good for perception and recruitment for large employers, because these type of meetings, and hopefully this will continue and have more of them, because perception is reality for so many people.
Absolutely. And we've been even kind of experimenting and discussing with staff and, you know, taking a dusk time, 5 p.m., 6 p.m. in the winter type of, you know, kind of community stroll, you know, from place of business to through, you know, walking through the Roco ramp or walking through Island Park ramp, you know, just so sometimes even just like walking through and feeling what that experience is going to be like with a group of people, you know, just like a walking tour, basically, you know, and so trying to, again, encourage that perception of safety or what to do, you know, kind of, again, those community service lessons on what to do if you are approached or those types of, again, perceptions of safety, but which are also real.
Mr. Chair, can I make one? Dusk time has been the last 2 weeks all day.
Exactly.
So if you can do something about that as far as sunshine or,
39 degrees on Sunday, get your scrapers out.
You know, does the technology that Interstate and that's deployed at the parking structure level allow for an app-based system that would tell someone if they typed in, I want to go to the old Broadway, and they typed in the address, or they typed in the locale, click submit, it would tell you this is the closest ramp with space available on second or third level or whatever. Is that even possible? Because that,
It is possible. I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
we're not
it-
there yet, but I know in our early days of discussion with Interstate, you know, exploring about all the creative
Yeah.
ways, because we've heard that point
because that's a
before.
unique thing. Like for me, the ramp thing, you're kind of wondering as you're driving downtown, like, do I have to drive to 4th floor? Do I have to go to 5th? Is this the right ramp? And there's that, the lack of knowledge causes you to circle the block twice, hoping to get the magic spot in front. So if you could leave your home and go, okay, that sounds good, and just not think about it, I think that would maybe help. And the other thing, we're a unique city in that we own our parking structures. In many cities, they're privately owned, and I think the opportunity to deploy technology like that across all lots is just easier than getting people to buy into it and pay a fee for it. And the other thing just to have on the mind that I think is wacky and outlandish, but how are we designing the parking structures to ensure that in 20 years they're not nothing? Because there is a way to design it so that they could be repurposed, and I think that's going to be faster than we think. I find it funny that you can buy a Tesla and have it drive you places. And so it's not that far off. So just as we design them, having them be able to be converted, sold, and be useful.
Yeah, I think, and Austin put in a proposal when we did an RFP for flat floors, and those are easier to adapt or repurpose. But it gets back to my point too about each new development or refurbished development trying to take care of some of their own parking, so we don't have all our eggs in these baskets. And you think about the places like Jesse Craig just built on First Avenue. They park on the main level.
Yep.
He knows they might not need that someday, and they open it up for retail.
Yep.
So those are ways that developers and us can work together to be future ready. But I really appreciate your comment, and you had a neat proposal, you just didn't own enough land.
Well, I think it's fascinating. There are already app developers out there that are trying to figure out how could we let someone, if they drive their car to work, put their work in the queue, and their car becomes a taxi and pays for itself. So that's just fascinating to me that you'd go to work, you're not going to leave work, you push a button, put it in a queue, and then other people are using it and paying you like an Uber. So
Truro does that already, but, and then your point about the lots and the apps. So we were using Passport, we use a Passport as our technology anyway, But they do, it's just a matter of how much we want to invest in those apps. But, it's simple, and one that seems simple to me is it's smart enough now, Vanessa, right, to know when it's full, because it says it's full if it's
Yep.
full. But just for that app to even, if, for instance, Austin's sake, said, I want to use the Roco ramp, is there anything open? Or if it isn't, it just says red. If it is, it's green, and it's on your app instead of having to drive there. Is that what
And then
you're
maybe once you submit it, it says the walking distance and then compares it like, if you parked in the 5th row and you wanted to go to Talbot's at West Acres, it's the same distance, because I think that's a perception that's funny as even me walking around a block versus parking in the back of a Target parking lot is.
So we have a video, or a picture of the downtown area and the parking spots. We have same number of parking spots, and you go to West Acres, and that's the same radius. So you're walking the same amount of distance at West Acres as you are downtown. You're never gonna get front row spot. So that's a good visual we should resurrect maybe. But let's see, any other questions on the state of the parking open house? Otherwise, we'll go to ground
Yeah, so we're
transportation.
excited about the GTC Transportation Center update. It's been in long discussion. And for those that don't know, our underground facility has some beam issues and, kind of stormwater, water management issues with stability. So the city transit and planning, parking, I should say, as well as the Jefferson Lines facility partner together and are working with KLJ. They prepared a bid set. The bids were submitted a few weeks ago. We have qualified bidders, all of the exciting stuff because there's federal dollars involved. The contracts went to City Commission on Monday night, and so that means we are getting the go-ahead to proceed with construction, and that will start in early this year. So KLJ will continue to be the construction management coordinator, but we'll begin those discussions with our stakeholders that use the facility, interstate, et cetera, as we plan through the construction improvements and having to move people around accordingly. So that's kind of just good news in that regards.
So how much parking will be affected there at the GTC? Will they have to just shut down a corner? Because it's on the east side, right?
I don't know entirely. While I did receive a copy of the bid documents, I did not review them
Sure.
very
Okay.
closely.
Yep.
So.
But that'll be good to get that squared away. Thanks.
And then lastly, just a quick update on 4th Street here in front of the police department. We've changed those signs out. If they haven't happened already, they will be happening any day now, where there was a chunk of parking reserved for the police cars. So we'll be converting those back over to 4 hours. So just just a quick update for the Parking Commission.
And so how soon are those lots open now?
I believe so. We still aren't completely vacant of the public health building, and I'm not sure on the police department, but we'll coordinate with the admin, on administration and Vanessa on when we can get those lots up and mobile.
Nice. And then you're working on RFPs for those, or RFQs, or what are you gonna do with those buildings?
Oh, for the buildings, I'd say there's several properties that are kind of encapsulated along the riverfront with city ownership, Mid-American Seal, the Park East / HUD High Rise, the Civic Plaza here, as well as those two properties, the old police station and public health. There's a lot of discussion happening right now on what are the next steps. Our focus right now is really on the high rise with HUD's high rise. We have some opportunities working with HUD. They just submitted for disposition application, and so assuming that's successful, over the next 2 years, they'll be working on placement of those residents, and so we're collaborating on. So there's a lot of sequencing in place, and then the cleanup on the Mid-America Steel site. So at least from the planning staff perspective, our focus has been on those two projects, and we're waiting on the go-ahead from Bruce Grubb's team, the administration team, on the big grand plan for the rest. But with the Mid-American Steel site, with the EPA dollars, there's planning dollars to help kind of get to that next level of decision-making that would include those two parcels.
Mr. Chair, so the other thing is there'll be RFPs though, so that they aren't just gonna be selling the lot.
Right.
There'll be a plan and we'll know what's gonna be going there. That's,
Absolutely.
we learned that from one of our things. So, but that's very important because this is gonna set the tone for a long time for the downtown. And so it's a great opportunity. We're lucky to have it.
Yep, thanks. Anybody?
Yeah, thanks for that clarification.
Yep. Anybody have anything else? Nicole?
No, thank you.
Any other business from anybody besides the A Bison? Go 49ers? All right. At the, yeah, okay, I guess, and I did tell you already, so they're gonna be installing, they're gonna start with 3 2-plug level 2 chargers in Roberts, and that'll be getting put in the next couple weeks. So if you wanna swing by, I think, yeah, maybe, I'm gonna see if we can find it's a charge point charger and it's a smart charger, like what you're talking about. It'll tell you everything you wanna know and call you. But maybe we can get a demonstration for this open house. If not this one, we will for the next one. Anyway, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make motion.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thanks.